Greetings from Deal and Annulus. We are here in Sereth City working ourselves over to Rubak, Oseka, the Temple of the Sea. Um, and you'll have to excuse me, my microphone wasn't working when I was originally doing this narration, so I'm actually over dubbing with, I'm narrating after I've already produced this footage. We're working the mercenary and partisan tasks in Rubak, Temple of the Sea. You can see it's this conch shell, and it starts at the top, and as you work down, if you notice as you look down, the shell gets wider and wider, and it starts off more narrow as you work your way up. And each of these little spikes or spokes sticking out is a dead end as you work in. So we're going to zone in here. Like I said, we're working the partisan tasks here. The name of the quest that I was working on is the Keys to Freedom. So what this involves doing is finding priests in the zone. Any mob that's a priest, they're like these fish guys. And you have to loot these gems off of them. Green gem, an orange gem, a red gem, and a blue gem. And so you can see here, Deal is at one of the spokes, and this is at the narrowest part of the conch shell in Rubak, Oseka. And what Annulus will do is he'll blusterbolt the mob towards Deal, okay? And that basically roots it at the end of that dead end. And then what Deal will then do is engage. The mob can't see Deal; he's shrouded, and by blusterbolting, that will engage the tank merc. Sometimes it doesn't because it can mem wipe. So sometimes blusterbolt can be used offensively. Here I'm using it offensively, but it can also be used defensively to drop aggro. We can see that later in the video. So anyways, basically, since I'm also working mercenary tasks, just because I enjoy it and because the experiences in this zone is good, I'm also working the mercenary tasks. You get money for just straight kills. So I'm basically just working from the top of the seashell down to the bottom. You can tell that in the top of the seashell, it's definitely it's easier. As you work down, it gets progressively more difficult. And so you can see here we have a static mob, and so what you'll see is Annulus go at work out of frame, then Deal will come in. And so basically Annulus, it looked like he pulled with drones to get that worshipper to come in, then Deal engages. So that was a static mob, but we also have a pather that paths up, and you can just see her. So you can see her in the background there. So what we're doing here is we're basically trying to clear the hallway and keep the hallway clear. What will happen is as you work down, you have respawns behind you. And so minimally, I like to work the static mobs as well as the pather, and I work towards the spokes and kill the mobs inside the spokes if I happen to need them, or just to carve out a little safe place for myself. In this case, I carved out a place for me to pull the pather as well as that static mob just sticking out. It looks like I'm trying to get to the pather. Here's another static mob. But again, as you work deeper and deeper into the shell, the spokes get longer. And as the spokes get longer, you start to have more mobs. As you have more mobs, then you have to deal with crowd control issues. So I believe Annulus is going to blusterbolt here, which he does. And again, right under the nose of the pather. It looks like we have the zone to ourselves. And so this is kind of a pretty easy, straightforward way to do it. These mobs don't see invis, so just as easily Annulus and Deal could have entered into one of these spokes and engaged the mob at point blank range, and then snare. The snare is key. That way the mob is prevented from running out and aggroing the pather. lots of ways to do it. But I like Blusterbolt because there is this mem wipe component. It can reduce Annulus's aggro. The tank engages, so the threat is 100% on the main where it needs to be, and the deal then can then follow up once a threat has been established. You can see now I'm working to this priest. This is one of the first priests that I kill that drop the colored gems. This video kind of started off rough, so this is a remake where Annulus is kind of licking his wounds. And essentially what happened was he was just outside one of these smokes, got jumped by one of the pathers. You don't want to hit these. You don't want one of these guys hitting you from behind. It hurts. It hurts bad. So yeah, these are level 95 mobs. They're actually surprisingly they tend to resist a lot of the mezzes and blusterbolts and a lot of the traps that I set for them. They resist a lot. So so you just have to work down this little spiral very, very judiciously. You know, if you're a box army of, like, say, 5, and you have an enchanter and a bard and a feign death puller, it's a lot more straightforward. But for just a 2-box crew, and you can tell that's a bluster bolted mob that dropped aggro. So, so Annulus was able to get vengeance on the lady that killed him. This, I believe, was the lady that killed him. You know, if you're just a little 2-box army like I am, just 2 little halflings trying to find their way in the world, you really have to be very careful. You can't feign death like like with a monk or a necromancer, Shadow Knight. And so you can drop threat, but it's not so easy with the mercs and the types of tools that I'm using and with the classes that I play. But it is doable, as I demonstrate here. And you know, I just love having a lot of DPS at my disposal. I just can't say no to DPS. While on the topic of box armies, you know, I've heard on a lot of YouTube channels. I'm a big fan of, like, Everquest videos on YouTube, and I'm basically a fan of just about everybody. But I have heard some, like, really, like, strong positions on how boxing has kind of ruined the game, and kill stealing and so forth. And I just want to give my little 2 cents on that. Sort of a soapbox issue for me. That multi-boxing really has, in my experience, has not destroyed this game. And this is a very good example. We're in Vale of Alaris now. A lot of people are past the Argoth and Sereth City, like, initial stages of progression, and now they're in the 3rd and 4th tier of the progression, where they're trying to master the Alaran language and make it so that they can use the armor and do the higher progression in the expansion. So a lot of people are at the same stage as Deal and Annulus are here. So what happened last night, you don't see it this morning because nobody was on, but what happened last night was we had a lot of box armies in this zone, just killing everything, stealing from each other, having mobs stolen out from them. And what's interesting is that no one was really being called out. And you can see here I use the trap and blusterbolt to good effect. Deal set a trap, Annulus blusterbolted, and then the tank engaged the mob that had threat. But what happened last night was, you know, Deal and Annulus had a mob stolen from them by one of these box armies. And it would have been very easy for me to hit the record button, as I'm doing now, and sent a message to that box army that had stolen from me and said, you know, you're being recorded, I'm going to report you to a GM, and you're going to be in big trouble, mister. So I could have gone down that rabbit hole, but I kind of took a little different response. So again, the behavior is not going to go away by punishment. I don't think is really going to solve that behavior. The way I treated it was um, acknowledging that we all are wanting the same thing. So I sent them a tell, and I was like, "Look, I'm looking for these I'm looking for these quest items, and I think I was looking for a conch shell. So, and I was looking for snake blood or whatever it was, and I was like, look, I'm looking for some snake blood. I was wondering if you have any that's rotting. Do you mind shooting me a tell? Because I'm willing to bet he's at a different stage of the progression than I am, and I followed that up with like, look, I don't care if you take mobs from me. This doesn't bother me at all. But if you see anything rotting that you don't need, do you mind shooting me a tell? And he was basically like, yeah, there's snake blood right here. I don't need it. Do you want it? And I was like, yeah, thanks. So I followed him to where he had a corpse, snake corpse, looted the looted the snake blood. And while I was there, I was like, I just escalated it a little bit, and I said, hey, do you need ranger buffs? I noticed that he had a boxed rogue, and he also had a rogue mercenary. Two rogues without ranger buffs. And I was like, I see two rogues, and my little halfling heart goes pitter patter. So I was like, let me ranger buff your rogues. And he was so appreciative. He then gave me enchanter buffs and shaman buffs. So now I'm fully hasted. My tank merc is hasted. I've got shaman buffs, hit points, etc. So so then, like, I asked him if he needed anything, like any mobs he needed, and he was like, actually, I'm just here to get a couple kills, and I'll be out of the zone. So, essentially, yes, he stole maybe a mob, maybe two mobs from me, but instead of going the route of, you jerk, I'm recording you, you're going to be reported, and, putting my camera phone on him, and, you know, publishing it, and trying to blame and shame the guy. I just took it a different approach, and I just said, look, I'm looking for this certain quest item. I don't care if you steal from me. It's not a big deal. Take whatever you need. And asked what I could do for him. And then he gave me something in return. So it's not so much calling out the behavior as it is making it work for you and seeing what you can do for him and just kind of establishing a dialogue, you know what I'm saying? So as opposed to having a adversarial relationship, having more of like a opening up dialogue, opening up relations, I think that's a much better way to go about it. And for those of us on Mangler, it's kind of self-evident. It might not be so evident to someone on an earlier adolescent stage of the progression of this game, where it's just very easy to blame and shame and say, well, it's because of you that EverQuest is destroyed. And for us on a Mangler server, I think we tend to take a little bit more of a pragmatic approach towards boxing and actually have realized that they want the same things we do, and we can actually help each other out and actually have a working relationship as opposed to an adversarial relationship. So anyways, that's my little soapbox with respect to boxing. And in my experience, I don't think boxing or multi-boxing has quote-unquote destroyed the game. That's been my experience. I know other people might not have had that, but that's been my experience. So just maybe change how you respond to the stealing, and just opening up a dialogue. There's going to be some people that are just like don't even respond to you. I've had some examples of people that were camping multi-quest back when you could do like the multi-quest for the monk epic or cleric epic, and they were very, very um, very opposite sort of response. So that type of thing occurs, but at the end of the day, everybody will eventually get their epic. Everybody will eventually finish these quest lines. So, but just changing how you respond to that behavior um, can make a big difference. So you can tell I've reached this point where I'm working down the little snail shell here, and I've got this troublesome pather where what she'll do is she'll just walk back and forth, and she has a very, very short path. So you have this sort of limited window to pull the lady behind her. And so, and then you have this room with two mobs in it down one of the spokes. So this is a little complicated. If I want to work further down, basically what I do is I work the static mob and the pather, but I don't work down one of the spokes. We're going to clear. I believe she continues down one of her paths, and then Annulus, right as she starts her path, Annulus pulls and is able to single pull her out of there. But you can tell. So she starts. Deal set a trap. Yeah, that's what he did. He set a trap. Annulus then pulled, and the tank merc engaged. But I don't think the pather. Yeah, so literally I was able to get the zealot before the pather was able to reach the top of her path. So the trap wasn't required. So I think that was just good timing, is what that was. So yeah, so using the geometry of the zone to your advantage can is just how I did it. Yeah, you see how that pather behind the zealot just kind of walks down a little bit, then walks up a little bit, and back and forth. So just waiting for her to walk down is a good time to pull. And he was able to single pull. I believe he used drones, or he used like a clicky. So what Deal and Annulus do as we're working down trying to get these gems is they start ignoring the spokes unless there's a priest inside it. And so they ignore the mobs inside those spokes, and they just work the pather and the static mobs on the most inner part of the zone. So here we're just clearing pathers and static spawns. If there happens to be a priest inside one of the spokes, then the key is to clear as much outside it as possible, create like a zone where Annulus and Deal are free to use Mez and Blusterbolt without having to get anything else aggroed. So that's kind of the strategy here. I am going to fast forward a little bit. You can tell we've got... Okay, so here Deal basically was able to get all the gems this morning off of the priests. And so what he did was he deposited Annulus at the top of the ramp, because Annulus doesn't need to be present for the turn-in. And this is what is great about playing a stealthy class. He was able to just run all the way down and find the orbs. So what we're going to do is we're going to see the bottom of the zone. And let's go all the way down to the bottom here. And we'll show you here. So these are all the mobs I just killed. And so what this involves is Deal going into Shroud and giving the gems to the quest NPCs. You need to give a green gem to a red orb, a orange gem to a blue orb, a red gem to a green orb, and a blue gem to an orange orb. So it has to be in that specific combination. Luckily, I can do this without dropping Shroud of Stealth. I can also do the final hail without dropping Shroud of Stealth, as we'll demonstrate here. So I believe there's a little cutscene where I find the orbs. It was kind of hard for me to find the orbs. There they are. Okay. So they're obviously going to sacrifice this poor Kedge to the Prexus god. And so this is kind of a high-pressure situation because that Coral Ophidian can one-shot me, and then in the sea, or in the water, there's all kinds of Ophidians, and there's also one of those fish guys, a Hadal, right there. But luckily, Annulus is able to do his little rogue thing and sneak down there. A Feign Death class can do this easily. Just go down Feign Death right next to the Kedge and do the turn-ins and do the hail as your Feign Death, um, and just flop your way down there. But a Shroud of Stealth class, this is what makes playing a rogue so fun and so exciting. It still has all the same elements of the element of danger of like being in lower Guck at level 30 or being in the hole at level 50. So all of those elements still exist. So it still is EverQuest. And I still feel like it's the true EverQuest experience. You still have that sense of danger. Like, I can literally be killed by anything here. And even though I'm boxing, and boxing certainly helps, I can still be killed just like people can online on P99 or during the classic era. Death is easier. It's easier to deal with, and it's a big hit to your pride for sure. But at least you don't have the inconvenience of having to take a day and a half to get to your corpse to do a corpse recovery and get a res and stuff. That can be more easily managed. But still is the element of danger, and an element of like lost time, um, um, misusing your time. So luckily, I was careful enough here that I didn't die for this little quest, and I can show the quest turn in. As you exit um, um, Rubak and you enter Sereth City of Tides, what I tend to do is I mount up and Shroud or Invis, and actually go a little higher on the exterior of the conch shell. So I go an extra spiral. You'll see I go a little higher and then gain enough altitude to where now I can head north towards the docks and not fall into the water or hit the edge of the dock. And so it's just a lot easier to get to the quest NPC. Do the hail. This did not give me a language improvement, so what ends up happening is, just like in real life, as you learn more and more of a language, you get it's harder and harder to learn more and more. You need it takes longer, so you need to do increasingly more quests to get skill ups. So what you do is you right-click your book after you finish the quest to see whether or not you got a skill up. So I think I have to do at least one more quest here, but you can see my quest dialogue, both the partisan and mercenary missions. You can see that I'm 4 in now and I have 2 remaining. So begin the offensive is going to be the next one. And as I'm doing that, I'm completing the mercenary missions as well. On track is Beast Domain, Resplendent Temple, and that'll finish off the Tier 3 content. And that should get me well into my 80s. I'd like to reach the level 90 language threshold. And that'll open up, that'll pretty much open up Veil of Alaris for me. But so with that, I really appreciate your paying attention, putting up with my crappy pulling and my soapbox issues and stuff. Anyways, I hope you enjoy the content. If there's any pointers you have, let me know. I'd really like to know how to improve. Thanks.